In 1997, a small rural town in Pennsylvania is shaken by a series of mysterious disappearances. The townsfolk whisper of a haunted forest on the outskirts, where those who enter are never seen again. A young journalist, Alex, ventures into the forest to uncover the truth behind the legend. What starts as a quest for a story quickly turns into a terrifying struggle for survival, as Alex encounters an ancient, malevolent force. As the days turn into a nightmarish blur, Alex realizes that some mysteries are best left unsolved. It started with the disappearance of Emily Johnson. She was a high school senior, bright, popular, and seemingly without a care in the world. One day, she walked into the forest and never came back. The police conducted a thorough search but found no trace of her. Rumors spread like wildfire, each more outlandish than the last. Some said she ran away, others whispered about an old curse. I was a journalist for the local paper, always on the lookout for a big story. The mysterious disappearances piqued my interest. When another person vanished, a young man named Tom who was last seen walking into the same forest, I knew I had to investigate. The locals called it the Whispering Woods. They spoke of eerie sounds, ghostly apparitions, and an overwhelming sense of dread that blanketed the forest. Most people avoided it, but a few dared to venture in, only to return with haunted eyes and stories of strange occurrences. Some never returned at all. I decided to visit the town's library to dig deeper into the forest's history. Mrs. Reynolds, the librarian, was a kindly old woman who had lived in the town all her life. She pulled out a dusty old tome from the back room, filled with stories of the forest dating back centuries. According to the book, the forest was once the site of a Native American settlement. The settlers were said to have angered a powerful spirit, which cursed the land before they vanished without a trace. Armed with my notebook, camera, and a flashlight, I set out for the Whispering Woods early one morning. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. As I crossed the threshold into the forest, a chill ran down my spine. The trees seemed to close in around me, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal fingers. The deeper I went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made my heart race. I walked for what felt like hours, documenting everything, but found nothing out of the ordinary, until I stumbled upon a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a small, dilapidated cabin. Its windows were boarded up, and the door hung ajar. My curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped inside. The interior was dark and musty, filled with old furniture and cobwebs. As I explored, I found a hidden trapdoor beneath a ragged rug. With some effort, I pried open the trapdoor, revealing a set of narrow, wooden steps leading down into darkness. I hesitated for a moment but then descended, my flashlight flickering as I went. The air grew colder with each step, and an unsettling feeling gnawed at my gut. At the bottom, I found myself in a small underground chamber. The walls were lined with shelves filled with dusty jars and peculiar artifacts. In the center of the room was a large, ancient-looking book on a stone pedestal. I opened it and found pages filled with strange symbols and drawings of rituals. As I flipped through the book, I heard a soft whispering, like a distant echo. I turned off my flashlight, and in the darkness, the whispering grew louder, more insistent. My skin prickled with fear. I grabbed the book and scrambled back up the stairs. Back in the cabin, I felt a sudden, inexplicable exhaustion wash over me. I collapsed onto an old, tattered couch and drifted into a fitful sleep. My dreams were filled with nightmarish visions of shadowy figures and ghostly faces. I saw Emily and Tom, their eyes wide with terror, reaching out to me, pleading for help. I woke with a start, my heart pounding. The cabin was dark, but I could hear the whispering again, louder this time. It seemed to be coming from outside. I grabbed my flashlight and the book, and cautiously stepped out into the night. The forest was shrouded in an unnatural fog. The whispering grew louder, more distinct. It seemed to be calling my name. I followed the sound, my feet moving almost of their own accord. The fog thickened, and soon I could barely see a few feet ahead. I stumbled into another clearing, this one filled with strange, glowing symbols etched into the ground. In the center stood a tall, shadowy figure. Its eyes glowed a malevolent red, and it radiated an aura of pure evil. My body froze in fear as the figure stepped closer, its whispering voice echoing in my mind. "You should not have come here," it hissed. "The forest is cursed, and now you are part of it." I tried to run, but my legs felt like lead. The figure raised a hand, and I was engulfed in darkness. When I came to, I was lying on the ground, the book clutched in my hands. The shadowy figure was gone, but the feeling of dread remained. I made my way back to the cabin, my mind racing. The book held the key to the forest's mystery, I was sure of it. I spent the next few days poring over its pages, trying to decipher the symbols and rituals. Gradually, I began to understand. The forest was cursed by a powerful spirit, angered by the settlers' disrespect. The only way to lift the curse was to perform an ancient ritual. But there was a catch. The ritual required a sacrifice, someone who entered the forest willingly and survived its trials. I realized with a sinking feeling that I was that person. If I didn't perform the ritual, the curse would continue, and more people would disappear. With a heavy heart, I prepared for the ritual. I gathered the necessary items from the underground chamber and returned to the clearing. The symbols on the ground glowed faintly as I began to chant the ancient words. The air grew colder, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. As I completed the chant, the shadowy figure appeared once more. It watched silently as I placed the items in the center of the clearing and lit a small fire. The flames flickered and danced, casting eerie shadows. The figure stepped forward, and I felt a surge of power as the ritual took effect. The ground trembled, and the glowing symbols flared brightly. The figure let out a deafening roar, and then, with a blinding flash of light, it vanished. When the light faded, I found myself alone in the clearing. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, and the whispering was gone. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The curse was lifted, and the forest was at peace. I made my way back to town, exhausted but triumphant. I wrote up my story, detailing the disappearances, the legend, and the ritual. The townsfolk were skeptical at first, but when no more people vanished, they began to believe. But something still nagged at me. Despite the ritual's success, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was left unresolved. The book I had taken from the underground chamber was gone, vanished without a trace. And in the back of my mind, I still heard faint whispers, growing louder with each passing day. Months passed, and life returned to normal. But I couldn't forget the events of that night. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the curse might not have been fully lifted. The shadowy figure, the ancient spirit, what if they were still out there, waiting for the right moment to return? One night, as I lay in bed, I heard a familiar sound. The whispering had returned, louder than ever. I sat up, my heart pounding. The forest, once a place of fear and dread, now called to me with an irresistible pull. With a sense of foreboding, I grabbed my flashlight and headed back to the whispering woods. The trees seemed to part for me as I walked, guiding me to the clearing. The glowing symbols had returned, more vibrant than before. And in the center stood the shadowy figure, waiting. The truth hit me like a bolt of lightning. The curse was never truly lifted. I was part of it now, bound to the forest and its ancient spirit. The ritual had only been the beginning, and the real horror was yet to come. As I stood there, the figure's whispering voice filled my mind. "You cannot escape," it said. "The forest will always call to you." And so, the mystery of the Whispering Woods remains unsolved. The disappearances stopped, but the curse endures, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to enter the forest. And I, bound by an ancient pact, am left to wander the woods, forever haunted by its whispers.